Has there been a time when you've played a game and felt sadness? Sadness by either relating to and feeling for the characters in the game, or a sadness directed at yourself. Sad that you aren't able to progress, doubting your own capabilities, which then leads into frustration. Frustrated as to why the fight is like this, or the scenario, and then you become sad. Although the last part might be a bit of a stretch for a lot of players, I think the way that sadness and frustration can play together, both in the form of its narrative and gameplay, can be beneficial for creating wonderful games, because by combining these two emotions, we get something that's completely unique, different, alien. It's like if Joel from The Last of Us could suddenly time travel, or if Sonic suddenly died in his own game, which actually happened, but moving that aside, different doesn't always mean bad, but it can be jarring, and it takes a good game to manage to pivot its direction to become something else entirely, if only for that moment in the game. On the 1st of January 2023, I started playing Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and on the 30th of March 2023, I beat Sekiro. Over the course of my playtime, which lasted 20 hours over nearly 3 months, yes, I do jump back and forth between many games during that time, I went through a lot of things in that game. I experienced a story that showed the flaws of immortality, experienced a part of a culture that I've wanted to learn more about, and do lots of cool shinobi things. But above all, one of the most memorable moments for me was my battle against the Demon of Hatred, a boss that quickly evoked frustration and immense sadness once I thought more deeply about it. Be warned, I will be spoiling the fight, the lore, and the narrative surrounding the demon. And now, let's talk about it. To begin with, we must answer the question of what exactly is the Demon of Hatred. However, there isn't really a simple answer, because I think the Demon of Hatred can be classified as three things. First, the identity of who the demon actually is. Second, being that it's a boss that works fundamentally different from every other boss in the game. And lastly, the Demon of Hatred could very well be foreshadowing the future of you. The Demon of Hatred is one of the last bosses you will encounter in the game, but it is a completely optional boss as well, meaning that there is a high chance that you might miss it on your first run through. After you return from the Divine Realm with the Dragon's Tears needed to end immortality, you realize that Ashina is under siege by the Interior Ministry and the area is now in ruins. You're instructed to go after Kuro, the Divine Hare, in a secret path, the same one you used at the very start of the game, representing the full cycle that the game has put you through. Repeating areas and locations isn't something that is foreign to Sekiro. At the top of Ashina Castle, there are 3 possible boss fights to be had there, and this repetition is what takes us into the location of the Demon of Hatred. Instead of heading after the Divine Heir, you can take a long detour back to the first main boss of the game in the Ashina outskirts where we fought Gyobu Oniwa. As you progress through the crumbling castle, being engulfed in flames, fights breaking out, warriors giving up, you finally arrive to the arena where Gyobu fought you, and see some soldiers trying to take on this massive beast who appears to be the cause for at least some of the flames in Ashina. This is the Demon of Hatred, and the sadness starts here. If you pay close attention to details sprinkled throughout the game, either appearances or to the dialogue, you will be able to realize a devastating detail, the identity of the demon. At the very start of the game, after Sekiro has his arm cut off and left to die at the hands of Genichiro, he is rescued and nursed back to health in the Dilapidated temple. This man is the Sculptor, who fixes you with a prosthetic arm used by the shinobi, and in his spare time he sculpts Buddha statues that in the end reflect the inner desires of the Sculptor, and these Buddha statues are filled with rage. Yes, the man who saved your life at the start of the game turns out to be the Demon of Hatred. Fueled by rage of loss and hatred for people who have wronged him, it all breaks apart, leading to his transformation. And if you want to go to the outskirts how you did from the start of the game from the temple, you will realize that the tree branch you grapple onto at the start of the game has now been burnt, further implying how the Sculptor succumbed to his hatred. The demon is also missing one of its arms, and its beard shares strong resemblances to the Sculptor. Although we might not fully be able to relate to seeing an acquaintance of ours suddenly turn into a mystical demon, we can understand how it feels to see someone we were close to let their inner hatred and rage come through, getting the better of them. The Sculptor did have problems that he was dealing with, never letting Wolf know why he was helping him, but this help showed that he had some good in him. Alas, this goodness isn't for long. When rage takes over the human mind, there is not much one can do. This revelation is a sad one because not only are you forced to take out a being that has been of great help to you throughout your own journey, you're also forced to take out a being that is not fully aware of what they're doing, as their inner anger has clouded their judgment. Sorrow is not a foreign concept to the Souls games, as lots of the stories are tragic, but I think Sekiro manages to tackle this emotion a lot more deeply. Fighting the Demon of Hatred was one of the saddest fights in the game, but not the only sad one. Sekiro has an interesting way of dealing with this emotion. Sekiro's narrative is a lot more direct compared to the other FromSoft Soul games. The game has a lot of dialogue to progress the game, and the cutscenes show a lot of the narrative unfold. And because we are experiencing the story a lot more, we become more connected to the characters and the journey. And this journey, because not only is it the journey as the player, it's also the journey of the other characters, each trying to pursue and achieve their own goals, which ultimately leads to a lot of sad tales to be told. However, one reason as why I think Sekiro is a lot more sad compared to its other titles is the bigger emphasis on the concept of the duel compared to other titles. Duels are simple one-on-one fights. Although lots of the bosses in the Soulsborne series are duels, since it's you against another foe, in Sekiro these duels, for the most part, are on the same stature as you. You're not constantly fighting beings that tower and loom above you. In Sekiro, minus the Guardian Ape, Divine Dragon, and the Demon of Hatred, the bosses are more or less like you, the player. By having the fights be created like this, it gives the life and death situation a lot more meaning. You're not fighting against this massive beast, you are fighting against someone who is in the same position like you, fighting to survive on even grounds. And what more can you do to make these duels more impactful to the player? You make the characters carry a lot of weight. I will say this, which is quite a hot take I believe, but not many of Sekiro's bosses look super memorable, for me at least. However, what makes them memorable and some of the best bosses in the entire From Software catalog are the characters themselves and the flares of their movesets. Take Gyobu, who is literally just a warrior on top of a horse, or the Guardian Ape, which is just a big monkey. What makes these guys memorable are how their personalities influence their combat styles, which then translates into how you play around them. Gyobu riding around on a horse circles the player continuously, which is something the player would usually do against bosses in other games, or the Guardian Ape being a juxtaposition of bigger enemies as it moves with speed and power and grace. These small details to how these bosses play makes them that much more fun to play against. However, once you do manage to overcome them, a feeling of sadness overwhelms you. These characters were quite literally not doing anything of note, and you kill them in order to further yourself and your own story. That's the tragedy with most FromSoft bosses, but I felt this especially in Sekiro. The Guardian Ape was simply minding his own business, the Divine Dragon was divine and didn't want any fight, and the fight against Owl pitted you against your own father. This goes to show how the narrative of Sekiro plays into creating sadness, as the goals of you, Wolf, come into direct conflict with the lives and worlds of the other characters. You have to kill them in order to press onwards. Sekiro deals with sorrow a lot more directly compared to the other Souls games that I've played. Sure, putting Radon out of his misery once and for all is sad, or having to kill Great Wolf Sif, but for the most part, the enemies you fight are grand in spectacle and scale, but act as roadblocks to your journey. That doesn't mean the bosses are bad, because there are very few bad bosses that FromSoft have made, but what I'm saying is that the bosses in Sekiro have story to them, a lot more story. You are on the good side of the coin, and the foes are on the bad side, but to them, you're the bad side, getting in the way of them. Lady Butterfly was your teacher who had taught you fighting arts, giving you a connection to her. Genichiro wants to create an immortal army to help save his country. The point I'm trying to make is that the boss is here on the opposite side of the coin that you're on, but what happens if the opponent you're faced against is not on the opposite side of the coin? The Demon of Hatred does not fall onto the opposing side of your coin because it's not in the way of stopping you from progressing. It's simply there, killing those that wronged it, letting you pass moral judgment upon whether you should take it out. Now for the fight itself. What makes the demon stand out amongst the rest of the Sekiro bosses is how it fundamentally works. Sekiro is a game that has encouraged you to deflect and parry incoming attacks in order to break the posture of the enemy to deal them the death blow. The demon throws this concept out of the window and resorts to the classic FromSoft dance of attack, dodge, and move. Although the fight itself doesn't dive that much deeper than this, because in a nutshell, this is how you take on the boss. The demon will punch you with fire and you have to dodge it. It will then leap into the air, where you then have to jump and grapple towards it to avoid the flame impact. There is no real parry dance to be had here, as although you can parry some of its attacks, it's simply not efficient to guarantee your victory. The demon shares some similar traits to the guardian ape earlier in the game. It's big in stature, fast like a cheetah, and packs the punch of Mike Tyson and then some. Its moveset is also very chaotic, yet human. Unlike the guardian ape, which is a wild animal that is fighting as an animal would, which in itself is very alien to us humans, the demon is a lot more methodical. Its swings are timed and linked together to form combos, trying to also remove its blind spots with other attacks. If it gets overwhelmed, it might do a head slam to the ground to break up the rhythm, or using its fire powers to pressure the player away from it. And if all that doesn't work, it does a feral charge at and away from the player. What this moveset shows to me is clear, and it's that the Demon of Hatred knows what it wants to do and how it wants to come about doing so, which shows us that it is indeed human. The Sculptor that we have come to know is in there, somewhere, battling us, either because we're in his way, or him being forced to take us on by being clouded by his rage. There is not much more I can say about the battle against the demon. He has 3 phases, a sign maybe of the determination it has to keep fighting to satisfy this rage. However, the true sadness of the fight lies in the ending of the fight, and the ending of the game. Once you have brought the demon to its final death blow, it will ask you to finish him, clearly showing the suffering that he has been going through. Not only because how the rage has engulfed him, but for the whole time that he has lived with this rage within him. He had helped us, and the one thing we could do to repay him is to put him out of his misery, ending a friendship that had been with us since the start of the game. He had mentioned that this rage many years ago had almost made him a Shura, until Ishin cut off his arm. Shura is one of the possible endings of Sekiro, setting everything aflame, but on the normal ending, we see our Sekiro, Wolf, now carving Buddha statues in the dilapidated temple, a sign that the cycle continues and that someday we ourselves might turn into the Demon of Hatred. But hatred for what? Well, just like the Sculptor, those reasons lies a secret with Wolf, whilst we can just look and wonder. The Demon of Hatred is one of my favorite boss fights in Sekiro. It comes in at 3rd place, behind 2 fights that I simply enjoyed more. However, the implications and story that is driven and comes from the battles against the Demon of Hatred is something remarkable. The gravitas that the battle carries, sadness that is directly related to your journey, sadness from the lore of the game, sadness that continues. The demon is a fun fight, acting as a clear outlier to the fundamental mechanics of the game, but at the same time, a reminder that not everything can be the same. Not everyone is the same, not everyone shares the same emotions, goals, and lives. The Sculptor went through a lot of pain and rage that he had bared for a long time that made him more miserable. In the end, the only thing we could do was fulfill his last wish. And with that, welcome to the end of the video. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and any support or critiques are appreciated. A like means a lot, and if you didn't enjoy the video, a dislike also helps me know what I can do better for future videos. If you want to share your thoughts on the Demon of Hatred or on another boss that gave you similar emotions, a comment down below is welcome, and if you want to see more videos from me, a subscribe really does mean a lot. With that said, Tears of the Kingdom drops next month, and I cannot wait. So I have to do my studying now, so I can play a bit more when the game drops, and that's about it. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks again for watching. It really does mean a lot. Have a good rest of your day, night, and week, and hope you had a good Easter. And with that, Storm out.